The discussion that we were involved with yesterday before we had to end. So we were learning a Ramban in Chumash, where the Ramban had mentioned about the meaning of this obligation to bring children to Hakel. So it talks about Hakel, the Parshas Vayelach, the end of the Torah, and it mentions Hakel es ha'am, ha'noshim ha'taf, man yishmul, man yilmadu, v'yoru es ha'shavotechem, v'neim asher lo yodu yishmul v'lamdu. So it is interesting that Pasuk Yud Beis in this chapter 31, verse 12, it mentions about the men, women, and children. And it does mention the reason to come is Laman Yishmu, in order that you will hear or understand. Man Yilmadu, which we translated in our Gemara to actually have a deeper meaning of Laman Yilamedu, in order that you'll teach. So we did have these, we did learn about this. Laman Yishmu, Laman Yilmadu, you should learn, you'll teach, and you'll fear Hashem. So that's why they came to be there at in the 8th year for Hakel, to benefit in this way, that we will be inspired, so to speak, and we will keep all the words of the Torah. And then it says in verse 13, it mentions your children that don't know, they will hear or learn and understand. They will learn to fear Hashem, your God, all the days that you live on the land, that you pass over the Jordan to there you will that you will inherit. So the Ramban over here says that the children that it mentions here is the same as the children that it mentions in verse 12. So it mentioned men, women, and children. And in verse 13, it mentions the children as well. It uses the word taf in verse 12. And here it says B'neihem. But the Ramban says, you know what that means? It means the taf. It means the children that it mentioned in verse 12. It's referring to here. They will learn, they will understand, and the parents will get them used to it. And because taf here does not refer to nursing babies, which it often does mean. Here it means the children that will learn, they will understand. And we're talking about children that are maybe right below the level of chinuch. He uses that term, kroivim lehischanich. They're about to be ready for chinuch. And this is the reason that they should learn. They will learn soon. They will soon be able to learn these things. So get them in the mode, get them in the right mode, basically. They're not if they were at the age of chinuch, then obviously you would bring them. But here they're right below the age of chinuch. So you also have to bring them for Hakel in order for them to get ready to learn and understand and so on, be inspired. Now, but the Ramban says the rabbis in Chagiga Darshan, they expound on this verse differently. And what do the rabbis in Chagiga say? They say that men come to learn, women come to hear. The children, the taf, what do they come for? They don't have a reason that they're going to learn, they're going to understand. The reason of the taf, at least the way the Ramban puts it, is they're coming to give schar to those that bring them, to give reward to the people who bring them, and that is the purpose. The purpose is that the parents who bring them will get a reward. So what the Ramban is basically telling us is that there's a way of reading the Chumash, and then there's another way of reading the Chumash based on the drush of the Chachamim, based on Talmud. And the way the Ramban is explaining the translation of this pasuk, he is saying there is a way of explaining it one way, which maybe is based on pshat or remez, and then you have the way the Gemara expounds on it, and that's drush. And there are different layers to the meaning, and then the way the Gemara expounds on it, the Ramban understands this to mean that it refers to it refers to children that are, that are nursing. That's that's what it seems like it's including, even young babies.
Rabbi,
Now, yes.
can you again say what's Peshat, what's Remez, and what's Jerush? Because not everybody knows that.
Yeah, so in Torah, of course, there's many layers. And in a general sense, we say there's 4, but there's really much more than 4. Within Pshat, there's numerous understandings. Within Remez, which is, Pshat means the simple interpretations. Pshat is like the simple meaning, and Remez is the hinted meaning. Drush is the expounded meaning, and Soid is the mystical meaning, the hidden meaning.
And so it also says there are 70 ways to learn the Torah.
Thank you, Isaac. So that's based on my other statement, which is there are numerous levels. Within those 4, there are many categories. In other words, there's a number of ways to learn the Torah based on drush, as we find in the Gemara very often, that there are different drushas. There are numerous expoundings on one verse. So there's there's Shivim Panim B'Torah, it says there's 70 faces to the Torah, and that's gives us the number 70. But then there's also a concept of 600,000. So there's because every soul is connected to a way that they understand that each portion, and there's 600,000 major souls. There's more Jews than 600,000, and that's because each Jew has a little a spark of sometimes you have a few Jews having a spark from that original soul that is part of the 600,000. Yes, Mordechai.
Yes, there's there were children born between 1928 and 1945 were known as the silent generation. I mean, I'm a baby boomer because I was born between 45 and 63, but the reason the silent generation was called the silent generation was because, at least at that time, children were supposed to be seen and not heard.
They're supposed to be seen and not heard. Interesting.
Right.
So that was, they would beat the children if they made noise. Is that like the, they were really strict on kids could not complain, no complaining.
Yeah, that I don't know, but I just know that that during that time period it was called the silent generation for the reason that I stated.
Okay, interesting. Well, so here, that's an interesting question that you bring up. Like, how did they hear the king if the kids were brought? If you had little babies brought, then how did they hear anything? And then you come to the question of what about the microphone? Would a microphone be allowed? Would a king be allowed to use a microphone? Which is, of course, a topic of discussion, using a microphone for all these mitzvahs. But of course, in those days, they didn't have microphones. And so it obviously was miraculous that the king's voice would somehow be heard by everyone. But I wanted to bring from the commentary called the Bir Hativ, bring from another commentary over here on this verse, where he says that it says, L'man Yishmu v'yalamdun. So Yishmu refers to the men. Yalamdu refers still, Yishmu refers to the women, Yalamdu refers to the men. And what is the reason why the children came? And he says, how would it be that they would leave the children alone? Who's going to watch the children? So he says, the reason the children were brought, or the reason why the Torah gives a mitzvah for the children to be brought, is because to give reward, that when they bring them, they'll get a reward. And they're going to bring the children anyway, Because if everyone has to come, who's going to babysit? You're going to leave your children with some goyim who hate you, who are enemies? It must be that you're going to bring the children anyway. It's a very interesting insight. He says, so it must be that you're going to bring the children. So Hashem wanted to give you a reward. You're going to bring them anyway. Hashem made a mitzvah out of it. So he says, V'hataf, that you'll have the children also come, and they'll give a reward for the children. You'll give, in other words, a reward for fulfilling an obligatory mitzvah. So Hashem made a mitzvah out of it because you're going to bring them anyway. So you might as well make a mitzvah out of it. So that's explaining this statement in the Gemara. V'hataf, what is the reason for the children? To give reward to the parents, which means that's why it's an obligation on the parents to bring the children, because they're going to bring them anyway. But Hashem made it a mitzvah, so they'll get a reward. Is a bigger reward if you're obligated to do something than if you do it as a bonus. If you do it as an obligation, it's more of a mitzvah. So that's the way the Bir Hativ explains this statement. That's an interesting addition over here. Now, but it is the topic of discussion, like the Gur Aryeh, who's the Maharal, he mentions, what are you bringing these children for? It must be talking about children that are chinuch. He says, so if they're chinuch, so of course you're obligated to bring them, right? If they're able to learn. So why is it to give reward? It's to teach them. Why is it saying it's to give reward? Again, these words of our Gemara seem to be the wrong wording, because it should say to educate them, not to give reward to the parents. Like, why is it saying give reward to the parents? So the way the Gur Aryeh ends off is that even though there's no mitzvah that they should specifically come to this, we could educate them in other ways. Nevertheless, is a commandment to bring them, to give reward to those that bring them, and that the ones that are shaykh to this mitzvah. So even those children that you really could educate them all year round. Why specifically on Sukkot? And for the adults, it's a mitzvah for them to come. I understand. This is the rule. But the children, it's not really necessarily a mitzvah for them to come. They could be educated and all year round. So he says that this is the meaning of give a reward to those that bring them. That's why Hashem specifically commanded to bring them. So again, it's a topic of discussion here. That what are the children doing? And are we talking about what age children are we referring to?
Rabbi Smith?
The Maskil, just 1 second, the Maskil of David over here says that the verse, and verse 13 says, Uvenehem, which talks about older children, about them learning. So it must be verse 12 talks about younger children. And if so, what are they coming for? And so therefore he says, must be talking about, little children. So again, this is the topic of the discussion. Yes, Harold.
I believe the Rambam, excuse my voice, I'm under the weather. Rabbi, the Rambam says that you go, what's the purpose of Hakel was to recreate Har Sinai, the feeling at Har Sinai, that some of them, of course we were all there, but as neshamas, we want them to be as real people. So therefore you read unto a certain point and then you stop. So why do you stop? Because then if you read more, you'd be messing with the mitzvah, so to speak, and maybe that's the reason, if by recreating Har Sinai, that you bring these small kids.
Good point. Harold has a very interesting insight about bringing them, because you're recreating Har Sinai, which is based on the Rambam's statement about Hakel. Very, very nice. That maybe it has something to do with recreating Har Sinai. And at Mount Sinai, every Jew was there. Even the souls of all the future Jewish people were there. Our souls were all there, and the bodies of all the Jewish people were there at Har Sinai. So that's why we needed even the little children needed to come. Very nice, very nice. Maybe that's how the Rambam learns. That's a good insight. So so the only thing is, according to that, would it be correct for the Gemara? Does that fit with what the Gemara says, that you bring them to give reward to the parents, or should it say you're bringing them to redo the Har Sinai, to renew, I should say, renew Har Sinai, or duplicate, have something similar, reminder of Har Sinai? Maybe it should say that's why you bring them. Why does it say to give reward? Again, I don't know if it answers the real question. Right. Why is the Gemara using this term? But I like the insight, the very good insight. Thank you, Harold, for the insight. That's a beautiful, beautiful point. So in any event,
I would think it's a way of training the parents as to the importance of having the kids exposed to this kind of thing. Whether or not, you say when a woman's pregnant, what goes in? Everything goes in. What the baby hears, and when the baby's a little baby, people talk. And I used to say, when the baby becomes 2, you hear all the stuff that you've been pouring in for the last 2 years starts coming out. Words, phrases, and here the same thing, whether they're actually learning or not, to impress upon a parent the importance of having your children involved in these things, you get schar for that.
Mm-hmm. So would it be, according to that, shouldn't it say to educate the child in a by osmosis, or it should say some term like that, not just to get reward.
That's our secret. But the point is, you're supposed to do it. Let it sink in by yourself what happens.
Okay. Robert.
Yeah, I just wanted to add for what Yitzchok's sharing is that at one of the synagogues I go, younger children are free to be there with their parents, and they're made to feel comfortable. They even walk around. I mean, they're part of the community, and it's like, again, it's the comfortability of being at synagogue and being familiar that allows them to be more receptive when it's their time to be active. So I find that to be a great benefit, and just nurturing a child Jewishly within, in addition to the family, of course, the synagogue, the broader community of Jews.
Would you put an age to that claim? In other words, would you say that would apply from age once they start walking? Would you say that applies even if the baby is nursing, just born?
Well,
the mothers should go if they're pregnant. What age do you think?
That it began in this synagogue when the kids were just crawling.
Crawling.
All right. The cognitive, consciousness comes, right, but they're there, and they're loved by everybody in the synagogue, and it becomes a second nature for them. That's the best way I can say it, right? Isaac, for me, that was both telling and such a warm feeling that it was being so inclusive. And again, their learning process.
I don't know, nowadays, I remember going to the shul of Yerucham Gerelik. We were in the Bronx then, and he had a shul, nice shul, big shul. I don't have many memories. I remember as a kid fighting to be able to open the Aron Kodesh for Aleinu, and it was a big thing. It made a big impression. And they used to tell me the trouble I got into climbing under the doors from the bathrooms, right, and locking them all from the inside. Whatever, I was making trouble in shul. But when it came to there was a comfort, as Robert just said, and a competition and a waiting, and you want to be dressed up, and you hated it when your pants got torn just that day when you were supposed to get up, and it made a big difference.
And I wouldn't
Okay.
even say you got into trouble. What you did was you felt free to be a part of the community, right? The same thing at this synagogue. We had like the bars when people would walk up, or right, and the kids used to hang off the bottoms or crawl up the stairs. And the rabbi, it was just they were movable furniture, for no better word, all right? But that was the socialization, the inculcation that they belong there, and it's their home away from their domestic home.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah. Ben, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say the issue that it's a repetition of Sinai, of Mount Sinai. It just means it gives the importance to the day, to the occurrence. So it's a very important day. But the reason the parents get the schar, is because of the difficulty that they have to go through to get the kids to shul, in shul, and then getting them back home, just getting them ready to go, dressed and all that. It's a lot of work and a lot of difficulty. So that's why they get the sachar. The kid gets the enjoyment of
The
being
anticipation,
there, being part of
it's
the
the
family
anticipation, right?
and everything else. But the parents get the sachar because they are responsible of doing it. They are the ones that did it.
Right.
Rabbi,
So, yes, Moshe.
it's also, derech eretz, limudei kodesh, they're being exposed to, and also the exposure of accepting without even understanding where it will be absorbed, and later they'll be able to understand it later on.
Right. So the
Even
thing
though-
that,
I'm sorry. I mean, even though that was the way it was in Har Sinai, we had to accept without trying to understand. You go, you just go, you accept it. There's no question.
right. So
No, in
the thing that
Sinai, we accepted
everyone's
it before we went.
Yes,
In
that's
Sinai,
correct.
we accepted it first.
Yes, that's correct.
so everyone's coming along with this idea of learning that there's some benefit to the children, and the issue that we're really dealing with is how do you reconcile that with the wording of the Gemara that it's giving reward to the parents rather than the education for the child. So Isaac was mentioning maybe it's like we're not talking really about the child. That's like a side thing. It happens. It just happens to happen. It's important for it to happen, but the reward really is the parents here. So it does seem that maybe that's along the right lines, and what Ben said, which is that the parents, it is a headache for the parents to have to do. They have to dress them up, get them ready, and also it's humbling. A lot of adults don't like to bring their kids to any formal event because it's very humbling. The kid needs a diaper change. The kid needs this. I mean, it's kid gets themselves all dirty and it's embarrassing. It's belittling a little sometimes. At least that's what it seems like from others. I take my kids every year, but but most people it really doesn't it ends up a lot of times the kid makes noise and it's embarrassing and so on. So there's definitely a lot of reward that the parents deserve for bringing their child. Now the only thing is that is one way, that's one side of the coin. But let's look at the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that there seems to have been some type of miracle. And the miracle that was there was that the king, at least it seems to me, not that I've seen this written anywhere, but it seems to me that if the king was speaking Can you hear me? Because I just lost. Hello?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, you're okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I just lost everything. I don't know what that means. Just 1 second. I don't know. Okay, now I see everyone. So it's the other side of the coin is this. There must have been some type of miracle for the king's word to be able to be heard by, 3 million people. It just seems like, how would someone have such a loud voice? It must have been a miracle. Now, along with that miracle, the question is, what about the children making noise? And this children making noise, it applies to even children that are chinuch age. At some point, children, even adults. How do you keep 3 million Jews from talking? Even in regular shuls, sometimes it gets too loud and you can't hear the guy reading the Torah. So you're talking about, there must have been another miracle there as well, that people didn't start talking about their new car and their this and who knows, how they got here, or such a schlep, or something happened, or they bought it. They had a new airplane that they were on. Do this, do that. I don't know. How they got there, and it was great. Had an amazing trip. So how do you stop everyone from? So there must have been. I'm just trying to think practically. It must have been a miracle that people listened, and if the people listened, maybe the same miracle happened to the kids. So it wasn't really so embarrassing, maybe for the parents, because the same miracle that happened that the adults kept quiet. I guess the same miracle probably happened for the kids and that definitely would be some type of miracle. I mean, that the kids would seemingly be quiet. I mean, let's think about Matan Torah. There must have been a miracle there that no one said anything. It was such a great revelation, but that revelation must have been felt even to the children. And so it would seem that maybe in Hakel, there was some type of a miracle that happened that would subdue everyone from making noise. So if that's so, then maybe it wasn't such a tremendous, that sort of questions the other point that I made, that it's giving a great reward to the parents. Once they know that there's a miracle happening, maybe it's not such a big thing that they're taking their kids. It's not embarrassing. The kids aren't going to make any noise. It's going to be that miracle is going to happen.
Rabbi?
So maybe the bringing them, I guess maybe bringing them is a schlep. Maybe that's that, just to bring them. Being there with them is not embarrassing. Maybe that's what it says. Litin schar lima v'yehem, to give reward to those that bring them, not that they're there and it's rewarding because they're painful. I guess maybe that's the meaning, that it's just the bringing them is a real schlep, and that's you have to make sure they have clothing and sweaters and sunscreen and who knows what. It could be a big deal. They're dealing with bringing the children, and on the way, we don't know that there were miracles that happened along the way. So the travel, and this one needs Dramamine, and that one, gets sick on the way. It all deals. It is a schlep, I guess, bringing them. So anyway, that's just a little practical thought. Side note. Yes, Moshe.
It has a lot to do with Yirah Shamayim too. Fear of Hashem. The source of attending, not only for the parents but for the children also, when they're present. To feel right. That shechina from and the fear of Hashem. That
right. The only problem is that the Gemara says it's giving reward to the parents, not that it's implying like it's not really so much the Yirah Shamayim that this baby is going to get. I understand that I would like to say, like you're saying, that it's giving them Yirah Shamayim and it's the environment and so on. I would like to say that. It's just how do you reconcile that with the giving reward to the parents, rather than saying we're bringing the children because this is meant for them? Why don't we say that it's meant for the children? It is. It's gonna be helpful. This is gonna be very beneficial. So I'm just trying to reconcile. We're trying to figure out a way to reconcile that. If it really is beneficial. Okay. David, you look very serious. Is this you have a question or anything? Any thoughts? You want to argue on this? Okay.
No, I'm just listening to everybody else.
Okay. All right, so that's what it seems like. Again, if anyone has any thoughts, or you have anything in the art scroll or in the Steinsaltz, if you see any insight onto the practicality of this, or here we have, and I did mention yesterday, we have the Tosfos over here, that it's something to rely for. They rely on this to bring little children to shul. Tosfos doesn't tell us what age he's talking about, so he leaves it vague. So he doesn't, you could pull Tosfos to different directions. But does he mean just below the age of chinuch, but above the age of where they make noise? That's would logically be what Tosfos is saying. But according to that, does he mean that they didn't bring the little babies to the Hakel? Did they not bring the little babies? I mean, we saw that there seems to be an argument if the little babies needed to come to Hakel. Yes, Ben.
I think they definitely did, because if they didn't come, the mothers couldn't come either. The mother really can't leave the baby for too long.
Right. The question is, how long did Hakel take?
How long? Probably half a day,
You think so?
A trip, there.
It was Moitei Yom Tov Rishon, so it seems like it was at night after the first day of Sukkot. And what did they read? They read part of Devarim. They read certain portions. So from the beginning till here, till there, I would guess the guy the king probably read it very fast. That's what I would think. Probably an hour. Probably finished the.
I know, but with the getting ready and with the trip, with everything else, it takes time.
Now
So
the thing is, we did learn.
She cannot leave the baby and go to shul.
We did learn that there's a lot of people that are exempt from going to Hakel. So
but here
if you want to know who are the babysitters, if there were babysitters, we learned that there are people that were exempt from Hakel. So I don't know how good babysitters.
But it didn't say that the woman is exempt. The woman has to go.
Right, the women have to go. For sure. The women have to go. But
Rebbe, I'm sure this was a whole production with people from the king's entourage or singers or accompaniment, and that I don't think there needed to be a nest. I don't think it was so important, maybe I'm wrong, that the children hear every word, they know what's going on. People probably knew the Parakim and followed. Well, I don't know. It's every 7 years. That's a good question. It's not like it was every year. It was only every 7 years. You got a chance to do it once as a kid, once as a teenager, once as an adult, and once as an alter. And that's it.
Right. So what are you saying from that? It was something to look forward to. That makes it more. What are you thinking? What are you saying? But basically,
I'm thinking that it wasn't so important that they heard every word, that there had to be a nest for the king to hear the words. I think that the king could say it or whatever, and the people with him there could maybe say it, whatever it was. People would know that it was an event one way or the other.
So you're saying maybe they didn't need to hear the words, but I don't
Not
know.
every word.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So they're just coming and they're not hearing anything, and they're just seeing
they're seeing and they're hearing and they're watching and everything else that's going on. This is a big production. I'm sure it wasn't the king alone coming out with his Sefer Torah, putting it on the bima and laning a few parakim. It had to be a complete production by the king's establishment, maybe with speakers, maybe with teachers. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's ever looked into this. What was going on at Hakel?
I don't know if I could agree with that. I don't know. It sounds like a nice idea, especially nowadays that we know about all these productions. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it was just pulling out the Sefer Torah. Of course, it was inspirational. I mean, you would see the king coming there with the red carpet, and you see everyone walking before him. So I guess it was a some type of production, as you say it. But
in the old days, Rebbe, they had very big productions. They didn't have time to do much of anything else, and they didn't have television to distract them. So for people to get involved in making, we read later about with the king, with the temple glass and the chatzaitzras they used to have. It wasn't such a big deal for them. I mean, we hear somebody going to an army with 40,000 troops. That's a lot of troops to feed and to move and to do.
Right.
And they were able to.
Okay. All right. Anyway, maybe we'll look into it. I have to see what the Rambam writes, and if maybe some of the other Rishonim. We'll have to take a look at the laws of Hakel, especially because it's this year. It's very apropos. We should really look into it. There's also I have an encyclopedia Talmudis that maybe has a section in Hakel. Maybe I'll pull it out and take a look there. Okay. In the meantime, let's continue. So we were just going over the Gemara, and the Gemara said that so this was the gemstone. This was the diamond that they gave to Rabbi Yeshua when they taught him, when they told him, they repeated to him what they had heard from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Now it is interesting because I believe it was Rabbi Yeshua. There's a story that one of the Tanoim, the mother, used to take him to the Beis Medrash. And I believe it was Rabbi Yeshua. And so there might be some connection here with the fact that Rabbi Yeshua is the one who was in the Beis Medrash as a baby. And the fact that Rabbi Yeshua now finds out that there's an inyan for the babies to come to give, that it gives reward for the parent, that there's that it's a very powerful thing for a child to come, even just for the parents to get that they get a reward for bringing their children to the Beis Medrash. So maybe it made him feel good that his parents did the right thing, so to speak, in bringing him to a shul, which to the Beis Medrash, to the study hall. And another point. Another point is that there's an argument about women being obligated in learning Torah. Is it a mitzvah? Is it wrong? So the Mishnah in Saita talks about this, and it mentions the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. And let me pull up the Mishnah. The Mishnah in Saita here, he brings that it's Ben Azai, which we learned, we saw Taisa says, Ben Azai says it's chayev, the person is obligated to teach Torah to his daughter. Chayev adam lelamed es bitei Torah. And we have Rabbi Eliezer says, Ki'ilu malamda tiflos. Rabbi Eliezer argues, he says, you're not allowed to teach Torah to your daughter. Now, this statement, interestingly enough, is a statement from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Now, if you happen to know about Rabbi Eliezer, the halacha generally doesn't follow Rabbi Eliezer. And so Rabbi Eliezer held you shouldn't teach your daughter Torah, meaning that there's no mitzvah, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah doesn't apply to your daughter. So Rabbi Yeshua follows that view of Rabbi Eliezer. The only problem is Rabbi Eliezer generally was not the accepted view. And it says that he was put in cherem at some point. The rabbis argued on him. He was a great scholar, a great holy person, but the rabbis did argue on him. So it could be that Rabbi Yeshua was very happy to find that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah agreed with him. that because Rabbi Yeshua in the Mishnah also implies the same thing, that he follows this view like Rabbi Eliezer. But Rabbi Eliezer, being on the same in the same league as his view, it didn't make him feel so great, like this is the correct view. He had Ben Azai arguing. But here he sees that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says that women, they just come lishmaya to hear. They don't have a mitzvah to actually learn Torah. They have to come and hear and be inspired and know their laws. They come to hear, but they don't really come to learn Torah. So Rabbi Yeshua was happy that he heard this word from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, because that means that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is agreeing with his view. So maybe something along those lines. I once heard such a vart, and I believe that's the something that it goes along these lines. So anyway, we're trying to find what is the gem element of this statement that Rabbi Yeshua was so excited and happy to hear. So now we have a few insights. Number one is this idea of why the children have to come, especially if it's talking about little children. So that would be insight number one, maybe, that he was all excited to hear, that now we understand that there's a reason why the little children come, even if they're not educatable at this stage, or minimal education, or the answer was litin schar lemaviehem. Then I gave two other reasons that they're not my own. I've heard these Bertlach, and I might be saying them. I don't know if I'm saying them exactly as they're brought down, but these are two other little insights about this Gemara, which maybe that's why Rabbi Yeshua was so excited to hear this insight, was having to do with Rabbi Yeshua's personal life, being when he was in a carriage. They would bring him into the Beis Medrash, and the other insight as to Rabbi Yeshua's opinion about women having a mitzvah to learn or not having a mitzvah to learn Torah. Okay, so that is that basically concludes this little piece of Gemara. And then we said that there's another expounding of verses by Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And so the Gemara brings this famous pasuk of Es Hashem ha'amarta yom, Hashem ha'mircha yom. I call it famous because we had this in Gemara Brachas as well, that it talks about you praising Hashem and Hashem praising you. Es Hashem ha'amarta hayom, you praised Hashem today and Hashem praised you today. And Hashem tells the Yidden, you have made me a unique entity for praise in this world, and I am making you unique in I will make you something unique in this world. And then it goes through the different verses. I think we should just read this inside. Why don't we start from this Gemara, the 4 lines before the end of 3a. In other words, we're on page 3a, 4 lines before the end. The Oid Dorash, and additionally, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah expounded. Es Hashem ha'amarta yom, Hashem, you have praised today. And v'Hashem ha'amircha yom, and Hashem has praised you today. And these are psukim in Deuteronomy and Dvarim, chapter 26. It says, you have praised Hashem today to be your God and to go in his ways, keep his commandments. I'm just translating the entire verse, and to listen to his voice. And Hashem has praised you today to be an Am Segula, a treasured nation, as he spoke to you, and to keep all his mitzvahs. So the Gemara says that Amar Lama Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, Hashem told the Yidden, you have made me one unique entity of praise. And chativa means a chopping. Chopping means to separate two things. You have separated me for praise, for something unique, to be unique. So that's the term chativa. It's from the word lachtoiv itzim, chopping wood. So Rashi says shevach echad. The word here chativa, which means separating for unique, means praise, that you have made me into a unique praise, shevach miyuchad, saying that there's no one like you. And that's why we have chosen you for a God. For now, so Gemara continues and says, Hashem told the Yidden, you have made me one praise, one unique praise in the world, in this world. I have made you one unique praise in this world, like set aside for praise. You have made me unique for praise, a unique praise in this world. As it says, that Hashem is our God. Listen, Israel, Hashem is our God. Hashem is one. You've made me unique. I will make you unique for praise in this world. Shem, as it says, and now we turn the page. We're on 3b. Who is like you, a one nation on the earth. So that's the that's a little drush, a little insight into the into a statement of Rabbi Elazar, the verses that are basically expounded upon by Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that Hashem reciprocates. In other words, we do the Shema, and that causes a reciprocal from Hashem, that Hashem makes us unique. It's a very powerful idea that to draw down, that in order to awaken from heaven blessings, we by us saying the Shema and making Hashem unique and praising Hashem, it causes Hashem to want to praise us, which is, of course, a source of blessing. V'yafu pasach v'darash, and even Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah continued in Darshan. This is one way. This is Rashi's way of learning. There are other Perushim here that that when it says v'afu pasach v'darash, he also started expounding. It refers to Rabbi Yehoshua now, that he heard from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah some drushes, and now he also said, okay, let me expound. So he said, Divrei Chachamim. So it's either Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah saying this or Rabbi Yehoshua who's saying this. But he said the following. It says, Divrei Chachamim kedarboinois masmerois netuim baalei asufois nitnu meiroya echad. This is a pasuk in Ecclesiastes. And of course, it's very poetic. It says, these are the words of the wise are like darboinos. Darboinos is some type of a machine that was attached to the animals when they when it would plow or something to do to help the land. It's called a goad. So it's like a goad. That the words of the wise are like goads and like nails that are nituim, that are planted. Baalei asufais. The people of assemblies, the masters of assemblies, nitnu meiraya echad, they were given from one shepherd. So they're like goads, darboinais, and they're like masmerois. Masmerois generally is spelled with a samach. That means nails. They're like goads and like nails, and planted. The masters of the assemblies. So that means the words of the masters of the assemblies are planted, and they're given from one raya, from one shepherd. Yes, Ben.
Yeah, I wanted to know, who did you say was the one that said ve'afu patach v'darash?
So Rashi, look at the top Rashi. He says Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah.
Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
And if you look, there's a letter Gimel in that Rashi, and that letter Gimel takes you to Rebbe Tzalel Ranchberg, who tells you that the Maharsha explains that this is Rabbi Yehoshua who darshans. So there's an argument here between the Maharsha and Rashi, if it's Rabbi Yeshua or it's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Do you have not
Yeah,
all Gemaras
Lazar ben
have-
Azariah was talking before.
Yes. And
So this cannot be Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. This has to
Why?
be somebody else.
because it says
The
Pasach,
Afu means also he did.
well, it could mean that he also introduced his saying. In other words, that these rabbis are telling us, sharing with us another statement that he said, but maybe that he said as an introduction. And so maybe they're reminding themselves of something else that he said. I don't know that it's I don't know. The wording is, I guess it fits better the way the Maharsha says it, but I don't know if it's mukhrach. It has to be that way. Rashi does learn his way, even though the heading of Rashi is v'afu. So it is.
Okay, so the choice is Elazar ben Azariah or
Yeah.
Rabbi Yeshua.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So he says that the words of the rabbis are like these goads and are like these nails that are well planted by the teachers, by the masters of gatherings, that it's all given from one shepherd. So the Gemara says, Lama nimshalu divrei Torah ladarban. Why is the words of Torah compared to a darban goad? So so it says that somehow the goad directed the animal to go in a certain path. It made it go straight, I guess. So I'm not. I didn't live on a farm. I don't know this stuff. But Ben, you could help us. Do you know what a goad is?
No.
All
I
right,
Rabbi. I didn't do any plowing. The tractors did it.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
The
That's
word,
right.
the word to goad means to push an individual in a particular way.
Okay.
G-O-A-D. So I'm assuming that that's probably meaning the same thing.
Probably. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Thank you. That's so anyway, they would use this for an animal to go to push it in a certain direction, and it would lead it in a straight way. So the Gemara says that why is Torah similar to this? So it says Loi Melacha, it's called a darban. Why is it similar to a darban? Loi Melacha ma darban zeh, to tell you that just like this darban, this goad is mechavines hapara litla meha, that it directs the cow to its litlameha, means the furrows, to its furrows. So lohitzi chayim li'olam, to give life to the world, which means through the grain that it grows, or the vegetation, well, all the growth, the produce that it's meant to bring forth to the world. So it helps it directs it. So after divrei Torah is the same thing. It's mechaven es lemdeya midarki miso l'darkei chayim. It directs the lemdeim, the studiers, the students, from the way of death to the way of life. Ima darban zeh metaltel af divrei Torah metaltelin. So maybe you'll say that just like the darban is movable, and it basically doesn't last forever. So maybe af divrei Torah metaltelin. Maybe divrei Torah is movable and it basically gets worn out, and this would mean that maybe the words of the rabbis are not going to be lasting. They're not going to last. And on this, the Gemara says that it also says it's like masmedos. It says it's like nails, and nails is meant to be permanent. And this means that the sages' teachings are going to be permanent. So maybe you'll say that the words of Torah are like nails. It basically it maybe minimizes it. It ruins something. Also, it's chaserin. It causes there to be a lack, and it doesn't add to it, because a nail, when you attach it, so the nail sort of takes away from whatever was there before it. So maybe the same thing as the words of the rabbis. So the Gemara answers Talmud Leimer Netu, and it says that it's planted manatiyazu para varava, just like planting, it grows grows and multiplies. It's fruitful and multiplies. That's the word. So also the words of Torah after Torah parid v'rav, and they're fruitful and they multiply. Now it says Baalei Asufais, the words from the masters of gatherings or assemblies. So it says Elu Talmidei Chachamim sheyoshvin asufais v'isku b'Torah. This refers to the rabbis that are in groups and they study Torah. Now the Gemara continues and it mentions that a person might get nervous because you have different opinions, there's arguments. Halalu matamin v'halalu matarin. This group says it's tamei, that group says it's tar. This and halalu oisra. These say it's prohibited. Matamin means it's impure. Matarin means it's pure. These prohibit. These permit. Halalu matirin. Halalu paislin. These say it's disqualified. V'halalu machshirin. These say that it's acceptable. It's kosher. Shema yoimar adam. Maybe a person's going to say, "Hey, Chani Lamed Torah Meyata, how can I learn Torah with all these arguments?" And the answer is, Talmud Leimar Kulam Nitnu Meiroya Echad. They were all given from one shepherd, which either refers to Hashem or refers to Moshe Rabbeinu. And Kel Echad Nasnan, one God gave them. Parnas Echad Amron, one leader said them. From the mouth of Hashem, the Master, as it says, Hashem said all of these things in the Ten Commandments. What is all of these things? It refers to both sides, both opinions. Both this and that are the words of Hashem, of the living God. You also say, Oznecha, make your ears to apar cheses, like some type of a funnel, which it says that you should make your ears like this apar cheses uknei lecha leiv maven, and buy for yourself a heart that understands the shmoya as divrei metamin as divrei metarin. You should understand the words that say it's impure and the words that say it's pure, as divrei oisrin, as divrei matirin, the words of those that prohibit, the words of those that permit, after divrei, as divrei paislin, as divrei machshirin, the words of those that disqualify, and the words of those that say it's kosher. And the mitzvah is for us to understand it. It's all from Hashem. B'lashon hazeh amar lahem, in this language, he said to them, Rabbi Yeshua said to the two rabbis, Ein dar yasam sheRabbi Elazar ben Azariah sharui b'seichai. There is no orphan generation in the generation that the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is dwelling in its midst. And so this is the story of these two rabbis meeting up with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. The Gemara then asks, why didn't they immediately tell Rabbi Yeshua all of these beautiful things that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah taught? Why did they have to, why did they need to try to get out of it? They said, Rebbe, we came to listen to you. We didn't come to teach you and to tell you. We came to hear from you. They were trying to get out of it, pass the buck on, and they wanted the teacher to speak, and they didn't want to say anything. Why not? They had all this beautiful divrei Torah to share. They could have easily said it. So the Gemara asks, "Lema le behead," you let them to say these teachings immediately. and without trying to get out of it. So the Gemara goes through a story here and tells us why they didn't want to do it, which we'll Mitzvah Hashem do tomorrow. Sei gesund, everyone.